Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. An absolute pleasure to be able to speak to you. And yeah, maybe we can just begin from the beginning. Obviously you've got so much experience composing and scoring different projects, I think over 40, but this was your first English language project. And, no small task taking on this kind of big Marvel superhero 6-part series. So what was the appeal of this for you?
Oh, like just you said, it's big. It's everything about in and out about Marvel is big. The fan base, the production, the stories, the show, and everything in this tiny small detail is magnified to the full. I mean, if it's an adventure, it's a very big adventure. If it's a romance, it's a very deep romance. And if it's a fight scene or an action scene, it's big and full and exciting and dynamic and yes, and that's how it was. It was challenging in the best way. It has to be said.
Mm.
Enjoyable.
And where did you even begin, with because obviously it's not even that straightforward a story, with the multiple personalities that you have to kind of think of with Mark and Stephen and Moon Knight. It's, encompassing kind of ancient history, 3,000 years of history. And then there's all these different kind of genre tropes that I think kind of, it covers. It doesn't sort of stay in one wheelhouse. So how did you even begin to think of where to start with the music?
You know, well, usually I do this in my mind. This this uh, deconstructs or this, how do you call that? I forgot the word. I dismantle the story in its primary components. Then I recompose it again inside my head linearly, just inside my head, in order to musically see it or watch it, to have a musical scope to it. In Moon Knight, I first started with the main theme. Of course, that's my musical portal to the whole score, and I always believe that if I'm up with a theme to Moon Knight that encompasses the Mark Spector with all this a spectrum of things that he have, his dissociative identity disorder, his background, his childhood trauma, his this sense of guilt, the guilt towards his wife, his relation to Khonshu, and everything. If I come up with a theme that relates Stephen, Mark, and Khonshu all together in one musical of shape or form or pot, that will be my portal to the rest of the score. So I started with the musical theme, the main theme of the show, and then I let everything go fluently now afterwards.
And one of the things that is really refreshing about this series is, it's kind of a Hollywood, big production values, but we don't often see kind of, Egyptian history and culture kind of infused into one of these shows. So how did you also want to incorporate, your own background and, your culture, both in terms of, the sound, but also, the actual instruments and things you were using as well?
So this was it. This was the kind of the clearest thing of the whole task is to when the music needed to be Egyptian, so it needed to be Egyptian. So this was, I wouldn't say effortless, but it was clear to me what to do, and I needed just to choose the right tone and the right instrument to carry this tone, and then I did not want to segregate what's Egyptian from what's the original score. I wanted this to come to be fluent. The flow. I wanted the flow to be, um, I wanted to be blend in the Egyptian instruments and tunes to be blend in the orchestral and the whole score of the show. Um, I did that not only by using the Egyptian instrument, but also within the classical orchestral lines, within the strings, the brass, and the winds, and I used all the resources, the vocals, the drums, the all of it, and to carry to carry the Egyptian sense when it's needed, whenever it's needed, because I understand this show is not about Egypt. It part of it happened in Egypt, and
Mm.
part of it needed to be Egyptian. But yeah, that's what I basically did with the music, and what's was so surprising to me is that the Egyptian elements and instruments that I chose to work with, they they sit perfectly well within the orchestra, with the classical orchestra. They blend so well. So it didn't take me so much work to blend what's Egyptian to what's classical, and move along with it, mess around with it. And yeah, that was fun.
Mm. And in terms of your influences, do you take influence, from other kind of like Egyptian composers, or do you look more to kind of, other kinds of classical music, or is it other soundtracks? Like we're thinking of kind of like Indiana Jones and sort of, all those like movies of the past, you have like very iconic soundtracks.
Yeah, I think I'm influenced by each and everything I've ever listened to since I was born up until today. You know, I grew up loving this great, amazing Bernard Herrmann, John Williams, Jerry Goldsmith, John Barry, Ennio Morricone. And then the list is huge, really, and goes on and on. And the classical composers like Tchaikovsky, Rachmaninoff, Mozart, of course, and the list goes on and on and on. And Egypt has a long history of filmmaking, so we have really, really great film composers, Egyptian film composers, that they by themselves had their share to presenting the Egyptian musical aspect into an orchestral form.
Mm.
And I think I was influenced by all of that. And what really influenced me is not just the musical how did they use the instruments or how they use the orchestra. It's what influenced me. It's the impact that they left in my heart by their music, by their choices, and by their the timbre that they created. So, yeah.
And do you think that that is, is that something so special about kind of making a soundtrack, is it can really make or break, a film or a series, because often that is the way people are creating those emotional connections and that empathy, and particularly in Moon Knight, because of the three different characters, it's a way in for people, isn't it? So does it feel like quite a special role to play to make it all come together?
A film composer, I think I always believe that film composers need to have the passion towards the art of storytelling. And the art of storytelling, it's to me is one of the greatest arts, and one of the greatest human creations at all. And hence you need to feel for the characters, you need to develop emotions, and you need to know how to do that and how to make that interesting, because a story is a set of emotional developments going onwards towards an ending. So that's what keeps you listening, and what keeps you following what's going on, what's been said, what's been told. Yeah.
And what had you hoped, people would take away from, watching the series, but also, listening to a soundtrack? And, I've seen, like the reaction online, and, already so many streams of, particularly the theme. What does that mean to you, and how does that make you feel?
It means a great deal to me. I mean, look at how huge the fan base of Marvel. It's amazing. I knew that beforehand, but when you experience it, it's it's incredible. I mean, when you read a comment or a tweet or a message in Chinese or Japanese and Indian or Spanish or French or something, it's it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah, I think the whole show was well received, I believe. So
Mhm.
that's really magic.
And it does feel like it represents kind of Marvel going in these new directions, that, you know, like dealing with things like, you know, mental illness, and, you know, like the kind of like challenges and struggles he goes through, you know, there's like all that increasing complexity, and it's, you know, we're seeing something new and fresh with each new thing they do, and this feels like, you know, a really good example of that.
It was, you know, this was these whole things that you just mentioned, the dissociative identity disorder, and it is very challenging to take on all of that in one stream, in one artistic stream, you know, musically, and the way the performance and the directing and everything was really challenging.
Mm.
And I think that everybody has done a tremendous job. And when I saw that final on the screen coming to me, wait, and I had to write music to that, the challenge had been brought on to me, and it was one of the best ever practices I had ever gone through,
Mhm.
because I knew that this is so unusual, this is so not an everyday thing, not every day. It was an experience that I really cherished a lot.
Mm. And especially Oscar Isaac at the center of it, and then, you know, even Ethan Hawke, you know, and it kind of, you don't see him playing kind of that villainous role, you know, or like it's definitely lots of new and interesting things going on.
Amazing performances, don't you think?
Mm.
It's insanely brilliant how Oscar Isaac did that. And at some point in times, I needed to remind myself this is the same actor playing these two characters at the same time, and oh, all right, this is not only the same character, this is the same person in actual life. He's playing the same. It was amazing, and Ethan Hawke playing this Arthur Harrow villain, this so unusual
Mm.
villain, this someone you know the most dangerous villains in the world are those ones with the rationale, with the he makes a point at some point in time, so which is very dangerous, which is, it doesn't make him right, but he's not only just a bad guy who
Mm.
wants to destroy humanity. No, he's not one of those. He has a cultish prime mover. He's after something. He's believing in something.
Mm.
And yes, it was marvelous. And even Michael Maui
Mm.
and all the acting, great performances, really.
Mm. Mm.
What
I
do you
loved
think?
Oscar's British accent as well, which I thought
I was going to ask you about that.
it's pretty damn good. It's pretty damn good.
Yeah,
So he's done a good job there.
yeah, because to me he sounded brilliant, but to you, I don't know. I really wanted to know how did you find that?
He's got all the slang and all the, you know, the very specific swear. Most of it's on, but the authenticity.
You got
Um,
this really Cockney accent,
yeah.
really, really.
I think I'm out of time, but just very quickly, you know, what are you going to be working on next? I mean, is there going to be more Moon Knight? Is it going to be, you know, more English language projects? You know, what do you want to do after this one?
I'm reflecting on what's gonna be next. Really, I'm having a break right now after
Yeah.
this huge experience, and it's I'm thinking what's to do ahead, because what I've done was really changing in so many things, in so many beautiful ways, really.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm reflecting, having a break, taking a break, and having much needed time off with my family, and reflecting on what's next,
Mm. All right.
because yeah.
Well, can't wait for everyone else, you know, who hasn't already been through the whole series to watch it, and of course to listen to your soundtrack, which I think is going to be available, you know, to stream, you know, kind of independently as well. So thanks so much. Thanks for sharing all that with us.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so
Lovely
much.
to chat to you. Thank you. Thanks. See you. Bye.